assume that the Los Angeles Clippers players love basketball? We don't love to watch them, though. They are awful. They've lost 6 straight. The Harden trade, guys, it's not working well. We're going to take this one to the eye test. Mo, do they just have too many guys that need the ball in their hands? Do they not have enough size? Do they not have enough defense, up at the point of attack? What is the problem? What are the problems?
Yes to all of that, Dave. Like, I wish it was easier to kind of just pinpoint just one. But yeah, first off, the Plumlee injury kills them. They're down to just one big man in Zubac. They played the game against the Nuggets, and they closed for the most part going small. Now, they built a lead going small. I think people need to, kind of get that. And I think the problem for them is, and this is going to be a work in progress all season, trying to figure out how it works with James Harden, rotations and everything like that. But you can just see the effects of having Harden on the floor with them. They're slower. When they're at their best, they push with pace. They play faster. That was sort of something I thought Russ was doing a great job for them before this trade. And now they're not doing that. Now they're playing a lot slower. They have a lot more possessions where it's your turn, my turn. I think they are defensively. That's a bad backcourt. Just a bad defensive backcourt. There's no, as great as Kawhi is, as great as Paul George is defensively. Zubac is solid. It's hard to do that when you have 2 real bad defensive players. And I don't think Russ is, whatever. Russ isn't good defensively.
But Russ has been fine.
He's been fine for them, but it's been easier to cover it up with that stuff. But now I think you're in this situation is, go look at this Nuggets game. They had a 5-point lead with 5.5 minutes left. And then Ty Lue took out Russ and put James Harden in. And they still stayed small. It was a 10-point swing in the wrong direction for them. Like, it's just that simple. Like, that's a bad situation for them. Like, and they had a similar situation in the game against Memphis where they were playing terribly. And then when they made a big run when Harden was off the court, and then they put him back in, and they end up ultimately losing that game. Like, it's just, you're in a difficult spot when you're doing that.
I that's a great point to bring up about how, built a lead and then kind of kicked it away. They've been the worst clutch team in the NBA this year. And some, 10 games in. And so it's there's a little bit the ball bounces, but you get to 5 minutes left up 5. Like, that's the outer edge of what the NBA terms a clutch crunch time. If you get to the point where you're up 5 with 5 minutes left, you win 90-ish% of the games. And so that's you basically kicked away a whole game, like a whole win, by losing that game. And I like to look, at teams. It's a combination of how good the team is, plus, what the score is when we get to crunch time, and see which teams are over and underperforming. And they're already 2 wins under expectation. And usually the worst team in the league over the course of a year ends up in that -4, -5, -6 range. So they're like almost halfway or a third of the way to, really terrible. And is that luck? Is that, no, I don't want to say luck. Is that just kind of the way the ball is bounced? Is there something structural? I think we identified their problems with what their closing 5 is going to be when we talked about this trade when it happened. Is who closes and how does you find a workable lineup with that? And especially with if you don't trust Zubac and Plumlee out, then you got to go small. Except you don't have a small lineup that is a sensible closing lineup while being small.
They traded what I think is kind of the trick that has gotten them to the playoffs the last few years. They've traded away all their depth, which Ty Lue has managed extremely well historically. And now your eggs are all in the James Harden basket. And I just don't know if that's as useful to Ty Lue. Just think about from a coaching perspective. He doesn't have the pieces to plug all the gaps that they have. He can't throw Robert Covington out there as a small ball 5 just to try it out against Jokic. Zubac was getting destroyed during one stretch of that game, and they can't even attempt to go small and space the floor a little bit because They don't have a guy, like you said, that can hold up. So, I wonder if this isn't just a double-edged sort of sword that's going to hurt them. Number one, you've got to integrate Harden, and that's going to be difficult because it's James Harden, and you've got Kawhi, right? But number two, you've taken away the tools that Ty Lue has used to patch the holes in this team when Kawhi isn't out there, when Paul George isn't out there. And I think there's a little bit of the style of coaching that he does. He almost is it requires it for this team. I mean, they just don't have a third guy who's a two-way guy. So he's figured out a bunch of one-way guys and how to use them properly for this team. And I think Harden is not anywhere close to a facsimile of those guys.
I see your point. I do wonder how much of that was a ship having sailed on that anyway, with Morris and Covington and Batum, like where they are age-wise, if they can still be that. Like you say, I think it wasn't just the depth, it was the fact that they would put lineups out where everyone was like 6'7" to 6'9" and tough.
Right.
And that relied on Marcus Morris and Robert Covington and Nick Batum being like, very good NBA contributors at that point. And certainly Morris has fallen off, and Covington perhaps, and I think Batum still has something left.
I was about to slap you if you said something bad about Batum.
Yeah, no, but I think that on balance though, they're not like those three guys. If they had traded the 3 years ago version of those three guys, it would be a bigger problem. But it's just like, you wonder how much of how much of that was actually still present on this Clippers roster anyway, given where those guys are.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here for me. I think those guys mattered. I think, Dave, you hit the nail head on. And I think the important thing to understand is that, like, Batum was a big difference maker for this team over the past few years. Like, he's really kind of done everything for them. He's been a utility guy across the board. I just think this team needed to make a trade. I don't have a problem with them taking a swing. I just think this was the wrong pitch to swing for. Like, I just think, I mean, hell, like, we're hearing stuff about LaVine. I don't even know if that's the right guy, but like, I would have felt much better about that than what they than the stuff with Harden, and then the draft picks that they gave up and all of this. Like, it's a scary proposition for them, man. Like, this has to work. And it's like, I look at it going, like, I'm watching it going, like, you can't re-sign James at the end of the season.
Or if you can, it's because things have gone very poorly. And
right. Like, at the number he wants, you can't do that. You can't give him that massive amount. Like, are they going to end up having to trade Westbrook? Like, he's not going to be happy getting subbed out in crunch time games. And seeing the lead evaporate. That's basically what he saw last night. They went toe-to-toe with them for the last 5 minutes. They gave it away. And I think that's something that Russ is sitting there on the bench and seeing it, and he's going to be frustrated. I mean, like, they did a great job bringing him back last year, and I thought he was a mistake and all that, and he proved me wrong. He's been awesome this year, and now they just kind of neutered him in that sense. And it's like, man, this is just such a difficult job for even Ty Lue to navigate. I think they just said, like, hey, let's just make this harder. And I felt like they needed to be more patient. This never made sense to me. When James Harden demanded the trade, said, I want to go to the Clippers. It's like, okay, I can understand James wanting to come home. But I was like, the Clippers don't want him. And they made runs at other guys. We know they went after Drew Holiday and so on. But, like, man, this is just not the right guy. Man, and now you have to go through the whole season trying to figure this thing out. It's going to be difficult, man. And this isn't the year to do that with how stacked the West is.
You talking about them trading Russ just made me think about if James Harden were to request another trade here in a couple months. I can't wait for that one.